Diane. And I guess my colleagues are signing in any minute. I am calling the July 29th. First, Jorita, are we all connected with WH?
Yes, yes, Madam Mayor, we're all set to start.
Thank you so much. All right, calling the July 29th special town council meeting to order. And I will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you are able, if you can stand and say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Ms. LeBrun.
Ms. Blanks, Ms. Cantor,
Here.
Mr. Davidoff,
Here.
Ms. Fay, Mr. Gold,
Present.
Ms. Kerrigan, Mr. Sweeney,
Here.
Mr. Winograd,
Here.
and Mr. Williams.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. LeBrun. And just a point of order before we get started. An icon in our country is laying in state tonight, Representative John Lewis, who died on July 17th, lifelong champion of human rights, civil rights legend, and such a good soul. I heard to him referred as a living sermon, which I thought was such a beautiful, beautiful word. And I just want to read a couple of quotes just as we get started to inspire us. You are a light. You are the light. Never let anyone, any person, or any force dampen, dim, or diminish your light. Release the need to hate, to harbor division, and the enticement of revenge. Release all bitterness. Hold only love, only peace in your heart, knowing that the battle of good to overcome evil is already won. And that was from On Being Human and Across That Bridge, A Vision for Change and the Future of America. And then I think this one is also timely and will stand the test of time forever. I believe in freedom of speech, but I also believe that we have an obligation to condemn speech that is racist, bigoted, anti-Semitic, or hateful. Lewis on Speech in Walking with the Wind, a memoir of the movement. And again, we have mourned 152,000 deaths from COVID and over almost 4.5 million cases of COVID that our country is dealing with right now. With that, if there are no objections, we will start with the town manager's report until Councillor Blanks is on her way from work. As you know, she works for the Department of Health, and these have been very challenging times, so she is on her way in. But if there are no objections, and I will look to see, we will start with the town manager's report. Okay, Mr. Hart.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. And thank you for joining tonight's special town council meeting. I know these are a challenge to schedule in the middle of the summer, but appreciate everybody coming together on this very, very important topic. I am out of town this week and do not have much to report to you this evening. I have been following the police accountability legislation from afar, and we'll have a more detailed report on that topic at our next regular council meeting. But I know many of you have been following it as well, and Corporation Counsel's office has been providing us with periodic updates. What I do want to share with you this evening is that our certain town buildings, the town hall in particular, we are planning to reopen them on Monday, August 3rd for in-person transactions only on an appointment basis. And only those appointments for the most critical needs that can't be accomplished online or by phone. And actually, one of the things we've discovered during this time is we can complete the vast majority of our business in a virtual manner or by phone. But again, we will look to reopen in this fashion as of this coming Monday. A couple of key rules. Number one, drop-in visits will not be permitted. The doors to our facilities will remain locked. And what we'll do is someone will call or email, arrange for an appointment. They'll need to respond to a quick health questionnaire, and a representative from that particular department will go down, greet the person at a safe distance, ensure that they're wearing a face covering. They will be provided with something to sanitize their hands. Then they will be escorted into the appropriate office. After they've completed their business, they will be then they will need to leave the facility. So, it's taken a long time to get to this step. Really want to thank our town staff, mayor, and other members of our executive policy group, our health district certainly, for helping to guide us to this point. And we're going to continue to be very, very careful in how we conduct our business in order to prevent community spread of COVID-19. That completes my report this evening, Mayor. Happy to take any quick questions council members may have.
Thank you, Mr. Hart. Are there any questions for the town manager? But while I'm taking those questions, Jerida, Carol's trying to get in, so if you can connect with her, that would be very helpful. Thank you. Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Hart, this question just occurred to me. Governor Lamont put the issue of returning to schools onto the municipalities over the last couple of days. And I'm just curious what kind of timeline we're looking at in terms of a decision being made in West Hartford. I'm not looking at what the decision is, but maybe a timeline for folks.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Williams. Mr. Hart?
Matt Hart, Town Manager. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councilor Williams, for the question. I do not know the exact timeline. I will reach out to Mr. Moore, Superintendent of Schools, following this meeting, look to obtain an update, and then I can share that with the full council. As you know, the district had worked very hard in an efficient manner to prepare 3 different scenarios to operate the schools. One scenario for in-person, one scenario for remote learning, and then the third scenario, a hybrid of the 2. So they have the basic elements in place. I also know that the district is completing a transportation survey as well, which I think will be a key factor in the decision. I don't know if Corporation Counsel has anything additional on this topic, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Hart. Mr. Dodge?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. No, I don't. I think we're all waiting to see the final plan from the governor's office, which should be issued hopefully in early to mid-August. And again, this will be a decision that's made by the school board and the superintendent because it's an education policy question. However, I'm sure that they will keep the council apprised as there could certainly be some budgetary impact, I'm sure, at a future date.
Thank you, Mr. Dodge. I have a couple of counselors in queue for question. Ms. Kerrigan, well, first let me just make sure Mr. Williams is all set. You can give me a thumbs up. Okay. Ms. Kerrigan, you're next.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. I know that the town's fire department put forth a real effort to educate folks the necessity for face masks, and they were giving out face masks, and I thought that that was a really great approach to a very serious problem. But I'm still getting complaints from residents concerned about the number of individuals in the center without masks. Is there any consideration for perhaps fines or something that's a little bit more punitive? And I hate to go in that direction because that's not my style. But if the carrot doesn't work, sometimes the stick does. I'm just kind of curious what your thoughts are.
Thank you, Ms. Kerrigan. Mr. Hart, we have discussed this in length, but Mr. Hart.
That we have, Mayor. Matt Hart, Town Manager. Thank you, Councilor Kerrigan, for the question. So in terms of educating people about compliance with state guidelines, that remains an ongoing effort. We continue to utilize social media and other forms of media. Really want to credit our fire department under the leadership of Chief Priest and others. They're maintaining a regular presence in the center during weekend on the weekends, during the early evening and evening hours. They also are periodically visiting all the businesses in the center and in Blueback Square as well. They, as you mentioned, they will hand out face coverings to people who are not wearing them. The issue, the question of issuing a fine is tricky for us because the governor, as you know, has not issued a strict mandate on the wearing of face coverings. They're recommended for certain situations, strongly encouraged, etc. So our concern is if we start to issue citations, the legal footing for that legal ground could be somewhat questionable. So we're continuing in this effort to educate folks, and what we have noticed anecdotally, at least from the members of the fire department who are maintaining a regular presence in the center, is that they are seeing more compliance as time goes on.
Thank you, Mr. Hart. Mr. Dodge, and we have again talked in length about what we can and can't do, but Mr. Dodge, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And just a small correction to one thing that the manager said. Masks are mandatory under the governor's executive order 7BB when 6 feet distance cannot be maintained in a public place. There are, of course, some exceptions to that for people who, for medical reasons, are unable to wear masks, and also, of course, for small children. The governor did not specify in his executive order what the consequence for violating that order would be. And one difficulty that we have in the center is that, it is possible to be in the center without being within 6 feet of somebody else. And the governor, in issuing his face mask orders, specifically prohibited municipalities from adopting anything different than what he had adopted. So we really have very little capacity at the local level to adopt any regulations on this. It would be up to the governor if he chose to either give municipalities the ability to, say, create mandatory mask zones. That's something that he could possibly do, or to issue a similar order himself. But on the municipal level, we have very little wiggle room to regulate the wearing of masks, given the way that these executive orders have been drafted.
Thank you, Mr. Dodge. Back to you, Ms. Kerrigan. Any follow-up?
No, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Just also a note, I did reach out to the governor's staff and told him our situation in West Harvard Center and asked for what Mr. Dodge just outlined, either increased ability to create a mandated mask zone or put a consequence on the lack of. So anyway, well, we will see. Anybody? Oh, Mr. Sweeney had a question. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Matt, this is directed to you and can follow up to Chris's comments on the school. One of the things that I believe that the state is requiring of districts is for them to survey parents on the desire to reopen. And can you make that available to the council? Because there have been interesting reports coming out that are kind of overlapping with one another. The state, the governor announced, 81% of people want to return to school, and then read the newspaper today, and there's reports coming out of our local teacher union saying that only 31% of teachers want to return. And for us folks in the middle, we'd like to kind of get an idea of what the difference is, and just so that we can talk to folks. I know that this is a big thing, and to Attorney Dodge's point, I know this is not really our area, but I think we need to remain sharp on the facts at hand, just because this is front of mind for a lot of people right now.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. Mr. Hart?
Thank you, Mayor. Matt Hart, Town Manager. Thank you, Councilor Sweeney, for the question. I will make that request as well to the superintendent of schools and look to share the results with the council of the surveys that the district has conducted.
Thank you, Mr. Hart. I just want to also make a note that Councilor Blanks had joined just about when we started the questions from councilors. So right? We want to just acknowledge that you're here, Ms. Blanks, verbally.
Okay, thank you,
Okay.
Madam Mayor. Through
You're
you.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions of counselors to the town manager? Okay. Now we will go to the public forum. We will begin the public forum. Any resident or taxpayer of the town who wishes to address the council regarding any item on the agenda, which there are two, is invited to comment. I believe we already have some people on the line, and anyone else who wishes to comment should call 408-418-9388 with access code 132-222-2040. Each person will have 3 minutes to comment unless you are duly authorized representative of a group, in which case you will have 5 minutes. Your line will remain muted until the meeting moderator recognizes you by saying the first few digits of your phone number. Madam Moderator, please open the public forum.
Good evening, Madam Mayor. I believe there are no public callers. Sister Mullen is on the line. I'm not sure if she is a public participant. If she is, she can unmute her line and her time starts now.
Thank you, Sister Mullen. I think I will go to you as this part of the correct, Mr. Dodge. I'm just confirming. Yes. Okay. Thank you so much. Okay, Sister Mullen, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and council members for this opportunity to speak this evening. I would invite you that as you look at my face and listen to my voice, please know that there are really 73 people around me, virtually somewhere, and that there are 73 voices that I represent. So I just invite you to recall that. I was invited to say a few words about the topic this evening, which is the sale of part of our property, 27 Park Road. And so what I'm going to share with you are just some key points that I thought would be interesting for all of you to know as this conversation moves forward. First of all, that we consider 27 Park Road to be our home. And that's been said a number of different ways at different times. We don't separate our home from our mission and our ministry. It's true, we are facing great financial difficulties. And so 8 years ago, it was more than 73 of us at the time, as we have lost members due to death, we came together as one great body, and we made the determination that it was time for us to close our health care, first of all, which was part of our home, and then consider right-sizing, as families do all the time when they realize that changes have to be made for the welfare of the family. So I'm going to give 2 points as to why we really find ourselves at this time in a financial difficulty or the challenges that take place. The first is our financial resources are diminishing. Part of that is due to our aging community. Part of that is due to the number of sisters who are no longer bringing in a salary. And perhaps the largest one is the enormous cost that we take on to be sure that our home, the 27 Park Road property, is maintained well. So, and we consider our religious family no different from the families from which you come. It's the same thing. The only difference is that we're responsible for one another as a big unit. So that's 73 of us in our, quote, family. We have lived through what we call donated services in the past, and our religious community is not unique here. All religious communities, as they started out, lived through a time of what was called donated services. And I bring this up because most people are not aware of this, and it's important to share. The church does not support us. And although we may get a prorated donation from a secondary collection that's made every year in the churches, that's all we get from the, quote, church. We've been in West Hartford, as you know, since the 1880s, serving as teachers and nurses and social services people. But we didn't really begin to build any nest egg as a family would do when we were out working. That was not part of the scenario for religious life at the time. And it wasn't until the late 70s or early 80s, quite frankly, when sisters began to get salaries that were competitive with our lay colleagues. What happened was our earnings went back into a number of places. I can give you an example in that I worked in nursing for years as supervisor and teaching in a school of nursing. My salary, which may have been comparable to a lay salary, I never received. It went directly back into the building of the hospital in which I worked. Likewise, the salaries that teachers received were small indeed, and they went back into the convent to help run it, but not in the sense of allowing us to have anything extra to start to build up retirement nest eggs, as people all over the world do. Religious did not do that. An organization called, I'm going to call it the NRRO, it's the National Retirement Religious Office, looks at communities across the board, whether they're women or men communities, it doesn't matter, religious communities. And they look at communities in terms of fundedness. And by fundedness, it means, does a religious community have enough resources at its disposal to take care of every single member until that community is no more? That's called fundedness. Recently, and as a matter of fact, every year, we go through a process with NRRO in which we tell them how much we have, where our sisters are, how we're taking care of them. And for us, that means 73. So we have to tally up our income and our expenses, and we submit that to this NRRO facility. And they calculate the cost of care for every member that is above 70. Now, care means shelter, food, cars, maintenance of our homes, everything is included on that. 70 of our sisters are over 70. So there are 3 who are under 70, so almost everyone in our province here is considered to be part of the study. At the end, this year, NRRO told us that we were 82.8% unfunded. I repeat, 82.8% unfunded, which, going back to fundedness, means we do not have enough in our resources to take care of all of our 73 women until we are no more, until we have passed on. So you must understand that every year we do take money out of our resources, out of our savings, and we use that to support ourselves because no one else supports us. As I said, the church does not have any way that it gives us any kind of funding, and that's common across the country. It's not just with us. So the replacement of the savings that we take out for our family, just like your families, is quite frankly dependent upon the economy at any given time. And it's also dependent for us on who among us is actually out there working for a salary. And there are few of us at this point who are bringing in full-time or part-time salaries. And the number of people who will be out there doing that will become less every year. And so I just present to you that if the sale of the property does not go through, we have to start the process all over again. As most of you already know, after more than 3 years of working with a prior developer who submitted multiple iterations of the plans that they had, the sale fell apart just months before it was to take place. My team, which came in 2017, picked up the ball again, and we sent out the net and we brought in developers and looked. At the time, the buyer who was not able to make the commitment back in 2016 or so indicated that development costs for this property were simply too high. And now, having worked with Lex Laz these almost close to 3 years, we're all confronting the same issue again. The site is beautiful, but the development of it is costly. That's just a fact. From the beginning of our thoughts to sell this, to go on this sale journey, I guess it is, we've been on the edge. We have been on the edge, and now it's 8 years into this. So we continue to age. Our resources continue to dwindle. This sale will allow us to move forward into whatever future is facing us, and of course, none of us, including yourselves, know what the future holds exactly. But it will mean that we can move forward, at least for the 73 of us at this moment, with a little breathing space and a sense of home that remains under our feet. With the hope that we can meet new neighbors who become part of the development process so that we can continue to support West Hartford in whatever way we can, because we live the mission wherever we find ourselves. And so those of us who are here will continue that into the future. We take great pride in the stewardship that we have maintained for this corner of West Hartford. And Lex Laz has been extremely, extremely sensitive to our desires for the property, for our neighbors, and for keeping this property green, which was a key piece for us. We did not wish to see a business come in that would destroy the wonder of the property. We know we had wetlands, and it's just a beautiful piece that we hope would continue. We think that the development that's being proposed by Lex Laz will benefit the area and the town of West Hartford. And in closing, I would just like to say, we value what we have, and we hope that neighbors who may come to this property, should it be the development that we're hoping, we hope they enjoy this home and the grounds as much as we have, and we hope to continue to do so. And we're going to pray that we will continue to be here and that the development that's on the table now may move forward, not just for the sake of the development, not just for the sake of the town of West Hartford, but for all whose lives will be influenced by what happens here on our property. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sister Mullen. We knew you were representing a group, and we gave you a little extra time. We were very interested in everything you had to say, and because we don't have a lot of people, that's why we did, let you go, and we appreciate your comments. Is there anybody else, Jarida, Madam Moderator, on the call that would like to be part of this forum?
Madam Mayor, no, there is not.
Okay. All right. With that, I think we are done with the public forum section. We will, I would like to just open to the town clerk. We received a number of emails regarding this, and for the record, Madam Clerk, could you just review the emails?
Sure. We received communications from Tony Landino, 11 Beverly Road. We received from Molly Cook, stage manager at Playhouse on Park, Barbara Lorraine, board member of Second Chance Shop, John Kennelly, general counsel for Plan B Burger, Tracy Flater, executive director of the Playhouse, Lola Elliott Hugh, 57 Crescent Street, Christopher Conway, executive director of the West Hartford Chamber of Commerce, Teresa Emery, owner of Prospect Cafe, Chip Cohn, owner of the Beachland Group at 140 Park, Lisa Howard, owner of Stay on Park at 207 Park, Anthony Sulo, owners of Joey's Pizza at 353 Park, Jason Cheshire, art director located at 2074 Park, Carol McCabe, 11 Forest Road, Arena Lander, owner of Touch of Bliss Spa, 88 Park, Gary Dinowitz, owner of Prospect Cafe, Lisa Green, president and on the board of Playhouse on Park, David Stebbin, owner of Stebbin Auto, Catherine Denton, owner of AC Peterson's Restaurant, William Jordan, business owner, 290 Prospect Avenue, George Howell, executive director of the Housing Authority, and Rosemarie Durensis, 869 Farmington Avenue, and they were all in favor of the resolution.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Okay, so with that, we will move on to new business. Item number 4, we already did the town manager's report. Number 3, this is a resolution concerning the tax assessment for certain real property located at 27 Park Road and 14 Ringgold Street. I move we adopt. We will start with the town manager, Mr. Hart.
Thank you, Mayor. Matt Hart, Town Manager. Do have a presentation I'd like to make to council on this item and would ask Ms. Reinheimer to load that up now. Okay, and you can advance to the next slide. Thank you. So here with us this evening to discuss this important topic, obviously myself, and then from the town's team, we have our Corporation Counsel, Dallas Dodge, Kristen Gorski, our Economic Development Coordinator. Both Dallas and Kristen have been extraordinarily helpful. We've worked as a team on this project. Also assisting the town from the real estate advisory firm of Goman & York, we have Mike Goman and Don Poland on the line today, just attending our meeting today, just to assist with any questions counselors may have. And then representing the developer, we have Martin Kenny from Lex Laz LLC. Next slide. You can advance the thank you. So why are we here this evening? What are we asking from the council? Our recommended action is that you would authorize me to execute our tax stabilization agreement or tax assessment agreement with the developer pursuant to state statute. And here's the statute here. I won't read through it in its entirety. Next slide, please. So just to refresh your memory, a quick overview of the site we're looking at. The current address for the project, 27 Park Road, and it has been owned by and home to the sisters, as Sister Mullen just talked about, since 1898. For a good long while, they've maintained a strong presence in our region. It's approximately 22 acres, and right now, the facilities include about 185,000 square feet. That's the convent, the chapel, and the grounds. Next slide. A little bit about what brought us here today, and our veteran counselors are very familiar with this. The sisters have been working on this for several years now. So back in 2013, they began to seek development proposals to facilitate the adaptive reuse of the property, not to raise the property, but a reuse of it, seeking to foster historic preservation of certain elements of the buildings as well as the grounds, and allow them to maintain a long-term but reduced presence on site. So in 2016, they selected a New York-based developer, Center Development Corporation, which did receive approval for a new special development district from the council back at that point in time. And it was Special Development District number 145. And you can see the rezoning here. They were planning to redevelop 36 residential units for the sisters and build 310 units of residential apartments with various amenities. Next slide, please. Now, the center development, their project was titled Arcadia Crossing, and that development never really advanced beyond the zoning entitlement approval because they were unable to obtain the financing they needed, particularly historic tax credits. And the feedback they had received from the state back at that point in time is that the project would not be eligible because of what they rendered the architectural insensitivity to various historical resources, including the size and the scale. So really the failure to obtain those historic tax credits is what led the Center Development Corporation to their decision to terminate the Arcadia Crossing project. Next slide. So the sisters, not giving up, went back out to bid, as Sister Mullen described earlier, and they selected a new developer, Lex Laz LLC. And in January of 19, the town council unanimously approved their plan for the One Park project. And that's 295 units, residential apartment units, as well as 36 residential units for the sisters. And the One Park project did present some major changes from Arcadia Crossing, such as new architecture and reduced massing, in part to better complement the historic features of the existing building and the site, and to better enable them to receive the historic tax credits. Once again, this project, the financing for this project, was premised upon the receipt of historic tax credits, I think generally in the amount of $8 million or so. Next slide, please. So during their approval process with the town, the developer was working with the state, with our state office of historic preservation, as well as the federal agency. And here, that's the National Park Service. That's the federal agency that takes the lead. And at the federal level, they determined that a reduction in building size and site layout would be required for the project to be eligible, for the federal historic tax credits. So in July of 19, the developer submitted an application to the town seeking to amend the SDD in order to satisfy the feedback they had received at both the state level and the national level to qualify for those historic tax credits. And under this application, they were going to further reduce the building size, the number of units. They made some significant changes to the site layout and the landscaping. Next slide, please. Just a quick snapshot. Thank you. And continuing on with and wrapping up the project history here. Based on the feedback that the developer received, primarily at the national level, they withdrew their application from that July 2019 supplement from the council's consideration, because even with the architectural and landscape changes that they were contemplating, the project still would not qualify for those federal historic tax credits without a further reduction in the building size, in the massing. And that would lead to a loss of additional units, and the project would no longer be financially viable. So at that point in time, late last year, that's when the town and Lex Laz, we began to talk about ways to close that financing gap, that gap of 8 to 9 million. Now, how would we close that gap in their capital stack in order to enable the developer to move forward? And we began to talk about ideas, including public assistance, such as a tax agreement. Next slide, please. In terms of the project overview, a quick reminder for a refresher for the council, if you will. Here's how the 295 units break down. Most of them are studio units, you see, at approximately 48%, 141. The next largest category would be one-bedroom units, 86 of those, 29%. You can also see the other scenarios, the one-bedroom plus a den. Two-bedroom units, including some empty nester, a small number of empty nester units. Those are two-bedroom plus a den, and a very small number of three-bedroom units as well. Would note that out of that 295, 10% or 30 of them would be designated as affordable at 80% of area median income. And those income levels right now, HUD just released their guidelines back on April 1st. That's approximately $54,000, $55,000 for a single person and $78,500 for a family of 4 at 80% AMI. So Lexington Property Management will manage all of those affordable units, but they will report to our housing authority, who will serve as the affordability plan administrator. Next slide, please. And here is how the rent and income schedule would break down. This is not for the affordable units. This is for the other market rate units. And you can see the pricing of the studios all the way through the 3 bedrooms. So a studio, the monthly rent would be $1,600. The most expensive product, only 4 units. The 3-bedroom units would start at $3,500 per month. So good competitive rents for our region and our community. Next slide. So now let's move on to the key elements of the tax agreement that we're presenting to you here this evening and that we're looking for your support for. And when we began talking about this with the developer, the town realized that we needed, it was incumbent upon us to really do a peer review of the developer's pro forma, of their business plan, and of the proposed abatement schedule in order to do our due diligence on the part of the town. And that led to our decision to, through a competitive process, to retain Goldman & York as a real estate advisor for this project, with the developer paying their fee. And we presented the results of their analysis, as you know, at our recovery committee, our economic and workforce recovery committee at the end of June. So looking at the key elements of the tax agreement, the developer would need to agree to certain performance requirements. So they would need to expend no less than $66 million for the purchase of the property, for their new construction, and their improvements, including the breakdowns you see on the screen here. Approximately 230,000 square feet of new residential space. And they would be renovating a little over 111,000 square feet of residential space. And they would be constructing about 31,000 square feet for residential parking. Also, importantly, they would need to commence construction within 12 months, and they would need to reach substantial completion within 48 months. They will likely reach substantial completion closer to 36 months, maybe a little in advance of that. But the additional year is very important for the developer's financing in case something were to occur and there was some sort of delay in the construction of the project, which is why we tacked on an additional year here. Moving on to the next slide. Other important elements of the agreement, and we've touched on this a little bit already, 10% of the residential units need to be maintained as affordable units. So 80% of area median income, folks making a maximum of that amount would be eligible to reside in these units, and it would be 30 out of the 295 units. And again, our housing authority will administer the developer's affordable housing plan. Something else we had talked about at the end of June when we were presenting this to our recovery committee. Recall that the developer had originally requested a waiver of the town's permit fees, and those total approximately $550,000 to $560,000. The town would waive its permit fees, wouldn't waive the state fees, which we do not have the power to do. Looking at this in more detail, this would require an amendment of town ordinance, some policy concerns about taking this step as well. So what we agreed to, what we negotiated with the developer, Lex Laz, is that they need to pay the permit fees in their entirety in accordance with the town's typical schedule for paying those fees. They will absorb $300,000 of that cost, but we will reimburse them for $250,000 plus simple interest in years 4 and 5 of the schedule, which I will show you next. Moving on to the next slide, please. So the tax agreement, it would commence upon the developer acquiring title. This is important and I think works to the town's favor. Many of these tax agreements, actually the schedule commences post-construction. Under our agreement, the schedule would commence when they take title, and the clock would begin to tick during the construction period, not post-construction. So we will reach the expiration of the 10-year schedule at a closer point in time. And here's the schedule and how it's laid out. You can see the 10 years. The 10 years, that's the maximum that's allowed under state law for a building, for a project of this type and of this value. And you see the fair market value for each of those years. And this is what we have the ability to set, is the assessed value. That's what the statute gives us the ability to set, is the assessed value for the project. So you see the fair market value and how it would increase over time. You know, that takes into account cost of living and the fact that rental income from the project will increase over time. So that fair market value increases after the first 3 years on an annual basis, as would the assessed value. So the town, under the statute, can set the assessed value. We do not have the ability to lock in a future mill rate or anything along those lines. And then you see the abatement and how the assessed value would be adjusted. And under our agreement here, the abatement would more or less serve as a discount rate. So in the first 3 years, the abatement would be at 100%. That means the developer would not be paying any taxes on the new project during those first 3 years. In year 4, this is years 4 and 5, that's where we made the adjustments for those permit fees. They would begin to pay taxes on the new development in year 4, 10% of that assessed value of $28.5 million, and whatever mill rate we have in effect at that point in time. And you can see how the schedule moves forward. At the year 6 mark, we would reach 50%, and it would remain at that level for the duration of the schedule. Moving on to the next slide. So in terms of what we see as the potential benefits, what we as a staff see as the potential benefits of the project, you know, much of this we've taken from the Goldman and York study. Really want to thank Don and Mike and their team for the good work they were able to do here. That was a very important study for the town to perform. These are all estimates. You know, these are based on our best estimates of what mill rates, etc., may look like at some point in the future. But there are some very real and significant economic and other benefits related to the project here. Over the 10-year schedule, under the estimates that Goldman and York has produced, the town would collect approximately $3.8 million in real property taxes. Over that same 10-year period, they would be collecting $1.26 million in personal property taxes, primarily in new motor vehicle taxes that their tenants would be paying to the town. Once we complete the 10-year schedule and we hit year 11, our estimate, Goldman and York's estimate at this point in time, is that the project would be generating approximately $1.5 million per year in real property taxes, and then approximately $1.9 million per year and personal property taxes. Another benefit, a related benefit here, is that we would add a minimum. This number would be trued up at a later date of 32 million in assessed value for the real property and another 3.4 million in personal property to our grand list. So this project would certainly have some significant impact to our grand list. Next slide, please. Other benefits of the project on the job creation side, it would create approximately 126 construction jobs and 20 new permanent jobs. Another very important element, and I think this is one of the reasons why the council received so many letters in support of the project, is that the project would generate significant dollars on an annual basis in new consumer spending, both in town and outside of West Hartford, to benefit our region. You see here approximately 1.46 million per year in new consumer spending in West Hartford. New Park Road, Prospect Avenue, Kane Street, all over town, potential benefits there, as well as approximately 3.4 million in new consumer spending outside of town. A couple of other important benefits related to the project: it would create a new source of affordable housing units, as we've talked about previously. Would, by maintaining this asset and building the new project, maintaining the green space, the historic elements, the project itself, would certainly serve to enhance area property values for both our residents as well as businesses in that vicinity of town. The project would maintain the green space, 22 acres, that's a sizable parcel for West Hartford, the historic chapel and other historic elements of the project. And the last item I've included here, and I intentionally included it last, not to minimize it, but to highlight it. The project would allow some number of the sisters to maintain a residence on-site, 36 units for lifetime use. And they have served our region, as we know, for decades now, and really want to credit them for their vision for the project. They decided early on they didn't want to raise these historic elements to the ground and build something different, but wanted to work to redevelop the property in a very attractive way, preserving the historic elements, the green space, as well as a residence for themselves. So next slide, please. That completes the presentation. Wanted to make, Mayor, again, I wanted to thank Ms. Gorski and Mr. Dodge, other members of town staff for their assistance in this project. Special legal counsel Bruce Chudwick from Shipman and Goodwin was enormously helpful, as well as Don Poland, Mike Goman, and their team from Goman and York. At this point, I'll pause and happy to take any questions you or other council members may have.
Thank you, Mr. Hart. We have been going in alphabetical order on, so I actually have a new order. I mixed it up a little bit rather than going backwards and getting people in the middle. So I have in this order: Lamb, Chris, Ben, Mary, Leon, Beth, Carol, Lee, and Sherry. So, but if you have questions, I will take a hand raise, but that will be for any comments you might have in addition. But I can go through first. Liam, do you have any questions? No? Chris?
I'm sorry, so is this comment time or question time?
I think it's we're going to briefly go through questions and then I would do comments. So you have questions on the... I don't mean briefly. If you have questions, ask questions. But,
I'm good, thanks.
Okay. Ben, questions?
No questions. Thank
Okay,
you.
so a little hard if you're right. So just, and Mary? I think you're on mute, Mary.
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor Cantor. I have no questions at this time.
Okay. I should really go by your last name, so I'm sorry. I'll switch now. And dishonor. I'm sorry for not doing that for Mr. Davidoff. Any questions?
No questions, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Ms. Kerrigan, any questions?
I do. Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. I'm curious, and if I was buying a car and I wanted to know the value of the car and whether or not the car was a good purchase, when I hired someone to consult me on that and inspect the car, I would pay that because then I know their allegiance, their loyalty is to me because I'm putting money in their pocket. I am curious why we chose for the developer, who clearly has a vested interest in the report, to pay for the consulting.
Thank you, Ms. Kerrigan. Mr. Hart?
Thank you, Mayor. Matt Hart, Town Manager. Thank you, Councilor Kerrigan, for your question. That is a typical arrangement in development projects. The town did, again, retain Goldman and York through a competitive process. They're a very reputable firm. They worked for and reported to the town. Obviously, they shared their information with the developer as well. It's somewhat analogous to an impact fee, if you will, where an applicant or a developer, as part of the municipality's due diligence, they need to cover a certain level of those expenses for the municipality. That's not something we typically budget for. So this is very typical. Mayor, through you, I can ask Mr. Poland to elaborate on my response.
Thank you, Mr. Hart. Mr. Poland?
Yeah, this is a common process. Often in the land use approval process, we're retained to do a third party or outside review of an application, which is typically on behalf of the commission. But it is very common for the contract to be structured in such a way that the developer pays that fee. For land use applications, there's actually specific statutory language that allows that process to occur. So to us, it's a fairly common process. At the end of the day, the town of West Hartford, and specifically with Matt's leadership, was the client who we were in touch with constantly, fielding questions, providing advice, and so forth. Our interaction with the developer was related to questions, them presenting information to us. And at the end of the day, the report is our report based on our processes, our expertise, our opinion, and ultimately that being presented to the town. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Poland. Dr. Poland. Any further questions, Ms. Kerrigan?
Yeah, I mean, just because it's common practice doesn't mean that it's the smart thing for the town to do or the right thing for the town to do. It is my understanding, in speaking to those parties that were here during Blueback Square, I was not on council then, that what we did was we hired someone to represent us, someone in the insurance business that understood investments and crunch numbers and value, and could really tell us and guide us through the process, because we knew that they had our vested interest and we were paying for that. I'm kind of curious, as a town, this is a big deal what we're asking to do, which is to change a tradition, a practice that West Hartford has held on to for so long. Why we would not do what we did when we did Blueback Square, which was hire our own advisor.
Thank you, Ms. Kerrigan. I don't know if Mr. Hart, anything further?
A quick follow-up, Mayor. Matt Hart, Town Manager. Councilor Kerrigan, in my opinion, and as we just described, the town did hire its own advisor and consultant, with the developer paying the fee. Blueback was a different project. It had more of a public-private partnership, if you will, and the town played a much larger role in the development of Blueback Square. And I believe it issued the mayor or Deputy Mayor would probably recall $40 to $50 million in general obligation bonds as it's part of its component for that project. So a different project, much larger in scope. And again, what we did here, I think is very common. Goldman and York, the town was their client. And they were our advisor.
Through you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Hart. Ms. Kerrigan?
Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry, I jumped the gun there. Through you, Madam Mayor, and I'm going to let that lie. I will state that when you hire someone, if someone else is paying the fee, they're not working for you. That's just common sense. So let me talk about the nuns for a minute. So I know the first go around with Arcadia, the nuns were going to be able to stay there until they pass away for the price of selling the property. So is that the same arrangement here? So they'll sell the property for $5 million. The 36 nuns will continue to live there. And as they pass away, those units then will become available. Is that the arrangement?
Thank you, Ms. Kerrigan. Mr. Hart?
Thank you, Mayor. Matt Hart, Town Manager. I would need to refer that question specifically to Mr. Kenny.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hart. Mr. Kenny?
Marty Kenny, Lexington Partners. The arrangement that we have, and I think I explained that at the last meeting, is the Sisters of St. Joseph will own their building, their unit, as a commercial condominium unit. So they will have condominium fee simple ownership in their space, and they will own it and they will occupy it, and all we have is once they feel they want to sell the building in part, we have the right of first refusal, but the sisters have complete control over that property.
Thank you, Mr. Kenny. Ms. Kerrigan, anything further?
Yeah, that sounds a little complicated, but I get what we're going for here. One last question. So when it was understood that the $5 million investment you were making in the property, and crunching all your numbers, you couldn't develop it the way you wanted to and get the return you wanted to, did you go back to the nuns and say, I can't make the numbers work, instead of $5 million, we need to restructure the deal instead of to the town?
Wait, okay, let Ms. Kerrigan finish. Are you finished with your question, Ms. Kerrigan?
I am. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, okay, Mr. Kenny?
Yes, Marty Kenny. We actually did go back to the sisters. The price was originally higher. So, and that was a very difficult discussion. And it was very difficult for the sisters as well. But that's been part of what's been going on here, is everybody has been sacrificing to try to make this project work in difficult times, and maintaining the intent and preserving these properties.
Thank you, Mr. Kenny. Ms. Kerrigan, are you all set?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Appreciate it.
Okay, Ms. Blanks, to you.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. I just have one quick question. And the question, sorry I didn't think of it the last time you all presented, but after Mr. Town Manager, you presented that slide with the square footage and the rental price of those units. I was just curious, and either that's through you or someone else, in terms of the parking. Was there ever any consideration given to a parking port? I know, not a garage, but a port, to shelter the car from the inclement weather that we do receive here in New England. I'm just curious. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Blanks. I think this is for Mr. Kenny.
Yes, one of the reasons the last developer was unable to build the project as designed because of its massing was there was a significant amount of covered parking, which, the average cost of that was about $25,000 an additional parking space. So, and I believe the total amount of covered parking spaces was about $200. 200. What was I saying there? Yeah, 200 cars. So the new we do have covered parking, which flanks both sides of the new lobby, and we have about 70 covered parking spaces there.
Thank you, Mr. Kenny. Ms. Blanks, anything?
You, Madam Mayor, I'm all set. Thank you, Mr. Kenny.
Thank you, Ms. Blanks. Thank you, Mr. Kenny. Then Mr. Gold, any questions?
I have none. Thank you, though.
Okay, and I also am, I don't have any questions. Any further comments, Mr. Hart, Mr. Kenny?
No, I'm all set. Thank you.
All right.
Mayor Matt Hart, Town
Yes.
Manager, no further comments at this point in time.
Okay, thank you. All right, so with that, I think we can go to comments, and we will then do a, why don't, at the end of your comment, why don't you, would it be okay, Mr. Dodge, if each person said the way they're voting at the end of their comments? I think we'll be able to tell, but I think for affirmation for the town clerk, would that be okay? Mr. Dodge? You're on mute. Sorry.
Comments is to debate the matter, and so it would not be appropriate to vote.
Okay. That's fine. That's fine.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes. All right. And Mr. Sweeney, any comments? Not questions, but comments or debate.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you to everyone here from Lexington Partners, and particularly to the sisters. I know this has been a long journey for you all, and it's taking the vote last year is one of the, I think, highlights of my short time on the council. I've been really looking forward to see this development play out. I think that area of West Hartford has been such a gem that's been growing and growing and growing. And when we had the opportunity to vote on this last year, it was really quite an opportunity, because as someone who's, like a lot of us here, I grew up here, and there's always been this kind of gap between Hartford and West Hartford, and that and and I've looked at this development as a real bridge between Hartford and West Hartford, really kind of as a gateway for people to really embrace, as opposed to using this ambiguous line of Prospect kind of dividing the two communities. And obviously over the last year, we've seen the development of the Hartford Marketplace, and how that's exploded and really brought a lot of young people and energy into that, which, they call it Park Street in Hartford, and we have Park Road, but there's synergy growing there. And the idea that we would walk away from the in COVID is something that's unacceptable to me. And I say that too, because we had this meeting last week specifically on affordable housing, very specifically. And what we are looking at here today is one of the largest developments the town has ever seen, that is going to have a substantial amount of affordable housing. And so the idea that we're going to anyway consider that is, one, something that I can't accept, and two, as Matt said, this is going to bring $1.4 million in new consumer spending. We're adding somewhere around 30 new affordable units. I mean, that's 30 pieces. That's 30 units for 30 families that are going to move to this town. And what we have seen and we've heard from folks, people move to town to take advantage of those spots. And what we heard last week or 2 weeks ago is that when we provide those pieces of housing, particularly in communities like West Hartford that have really strong public schools, families prosper and develop and change, and it changes the course of people's lives. And the idea that we would not support this, to me, is one. as a Catholic is not something I would be okay with. I think that this is a huge thing for the community, and it's as a Catholic growing up, that is the community has been something that's super important to me, and the sisters' dedication to this community is something that I think that we need to stand by and support. And so, with that, Sister Mullen, I thank you for sharing your story about what you guys have sacrificed to get here. It was something that I needed to hear. And particularly, I think we all need to hear those types of stories right now and the way things are going and how much you guys have done. But I want to stand shoulder to shoulder with you guys in getting this done. I think this is a game changer for the town. We just had, really good news about West Hartford being rated one of the best towns in the country in regards to development and housing, and this is just going to add to that. And so, with that, Madam Mayor, I stand in strong support of this. I know this is a change of what our policy is, but as we all are seeing, change is a coming, and I think we need to consider that today. And I look forward to supporting this.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. Next on my order list, Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Appreciate it. So, like everyone on this council, I would like to see this parcel developed. I'm one of the ones here who has voted on it twice prior to tonight. And to Mr. Sweeney's point, I think that this issue we're dealing with tonight is twofold. One has to do with this specific project, and the second one is a larger policy discussion about the town and how it's going to handle development moving forward, in my view. And so I have pause for two reasons, even though I would like to see it developed. The first is it's an equity issue. People who have developed or tried to develop in our town before have been told that West Hartford does not offer tax abatements, right? And so now we're going to do it in this case. Moving forward now, West Hartford's going to be put in the position of picking winners and losers in terms of developers when they come in and seek tax abatement. And they will, and they should. I mean, if any one of us was a developer who came into West Hartford now and didn't seek a tax abatement, we'd essentially be doing a disservice to ourselves, and if we were counsel, to our own client. So that's a big policy shift, and one that is not insignificant because we are opening up Pandora's box. The second one is this. I believe, and I've expressed to all of you repeatedly, that I think the budget trajectory in town and the mill rate growth and the budget growth, even this year during COVID, $3 million is unsustainable. By considering tax abatement, I think the town council it's an admission that indeed the budget growth is unsustainable. So what we're creating is a framework where rather than deal with the underlying issue, which is the exponential budget growth, we're resorting to treating symptoms, right? So we have a developer who wants to come in. We want them to come in. They can't afford it in part because of the tax burden. They ask for the tax burden to be abated so that they can invest in our town. It's arguable that had we gone back and fixed the issue years ago, we wouldn't be in this position. And to me, it's remarkable that on the same night we're dealing with tax abatement for a developer, we're also having a resolution about affordable housing that talks about creating incentives rather than, again, looking in the mirror saying, what has the tax increases that we have brought and pursued year after year created? We're looking at ways to patch it up rather than fix an underlying issue. And so that's the framework I come to this issue with. And those are my comments. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Mr. Winograd.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you to the entire team for putting this proposal together, especially to Matt and Dallas. And they should probably tape this, the lawyers at Shipman and Goodwin. Praise them as well. We did get some late legal papers to sort of put a little more meat into the presentation we had received before, and those looked very good, and I appreciate all that work. So we're being asked to do something new tonight. perhaps even unique for West Hartford, and something I certainly hope doesn't become a common practice. For that reason, I think it's very important to be clear as to why this particular proposal deserves support. And why, to answer Councilman Williams' very legitimate question, why most developers probably shouldn't bother asking. I don't think many will be able to, or any be able to meet these standards. First, because this project is vitally important to this neighborhood. This is not a run-of-the-mill development. I supported it the first time around, was excited to do so because of the great impact I thought it would have on bringing vitality and energy to this part of town, to both Park Road and Park Street, helping local businesses on both sides of Prospect, and creating a more pedestrian and bike-friendly neighborhood. The location near the busway, other transportation shops. I noted actually the second time around that had it been completed originally, perhaps Lena's, which was my absolute favorite pizza place, not in West Hartford. Lena's may have survived had this project been completed on the original plan. We also made sure that the original plans called for an open campus concept, not a walled off enclave. And both developers have embraced this concept. So given the sort of state of the world these days, the demand for this economic boost is even more dramatic. And I certainly take into account all the residents and businesses along our side of Park who are clamoring for us to move forward. They need this, especially now. Second, because this open space is an asset that deserves to be protected and is unusual in town, along with the historic facade and, of course, the continued residence for the sisters. These are three factors that I think make it a much more promising proposal. And really for the sisters, if they had not been so protective of the property they love, really so stubborn about wanting what they wanted, it would have been a lot easier to find a developer who could make a profit off this property. I have no doubt of that, but they weren't willing to go for that. And that's to the benefit of the town and the neighborhood. Third, I'm convinced that this project will not go forward without the help of the tax abatement. We have been shown evidence for this, and it was a very nice report. I'm inclined to be skeptical of it, not necessarily for the reasons that Councilwoman Kerrigan mentioned, but there's a lot of numbers, there's a lot of assumptions made, and frankly, I don't have the skill set to really analyze it and tell whether it was a great report or not. But we have something a lot more, but it was useful, but we have a lot more information than that. We know that two developers, under the very watchful eyes of the town and the sisters, have tried and failed to make it work. Simply, if it could have been, it would have been. And at this point, I think we have an up and down option. It'd be nice. Sure, I would prefer if this had been done 5 years ago and we didn't have to pay to help it happen. That would be great. That would be better than it is if we have to do a tax abatement to get it done. But that isn't the reality we have. And then finally, we get to the issue of the affordable housing. As Councilman Sweeney mentioned, this is a great move forward on the need for affordable housing in town. And we're talking about up to looks like 30 addition housing units for a 20 years term after the construction is completed. Such units will help to fill a need we have in West Hartford. We are still not meeting our responsibility to the region. So to some extent, this is an obligation that we should take. But I see it more as an opportunity to create a more diversified housing stock and help us become a bit less economically and racially segregated. This is a solution to a problem I think we all see. It's not the complete solution, but it's a very big step in the right direction that, again, will not happen if we don't vote yes. Moreover, for this particular location, I believe this type of affordable housing at the 80% level is the appropriate threshold. This isn't a matter of ranking, and there was some talk last time about workforce versus Section 8 or something else. It's not about one being better than another. It's about what's appropriate for the area. Right now, this neighborhood on both sides of Prospect has a wide variety of affordable options. It is not an area with the highest demand for lower income housing. It would be very different for me if this development were being done in a different part of town. If this were in the center or Bishop's Corner, it might well be more appropriate to look for different types of affordable housing in the development. But here on the border of Hartford, I think we need to be careful both about the reality of the neighborhood and the needs of the neighborhood and the perception of using our first-time tax abatement to place lower income affordable housing on the border with Hartford. If we did so, it would be hard to rebut the assumption that we only support lower income housing when it's as far away as possible. I don't want to do that. I do believe we need to have affordable housing throughout town. However, for this project, for this type of income level, this is the exactly right thing for this neighborhood. I think it'll be appreciated, again, on both sides of Prospect. In the end, I think this is the right project for the right neighborhood, and I'm proud to support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Winograd. And again, I apologize for any disrespect with not going with your first names in the beginning. Ms. Fay, you are next.
Call me Mary anytime. Thank you, Mayor Cantor, but you can call me Mary, certainly. I think we're all in agreement. This is a fantastic, really great project. And it tugs at my heartstrings personally too. I was taught by Sister Dolores at St. Christopher's, all through catechism. The nuns did great things in my town in East Hartford back then. We were parishioners of that church. Actually, my dad still is for 60 years. So I certainly support the work that the clergy does, especially the sisters. They don't get the recognition that they deserve. And I was taught well, and they taught me a lot of really great lessons. And I appreciate Sister Dolores to this day. I truly do. I think about her often, actually. So the project's great. And I think we have to kind of bifurcate the issues. So we all love the project. It's really, really wonderful. It's preserving a historic place that we've had since the 1800s. It's keeping the sisters safe and sound in their own home, which they've lived in for a number of years. I'm certainly for that. 100%, I stand behind that. But, I took an oath when I took this office, and I certainly have to represent our taxpayers and our residents. And they're hurting. They're all really hurting. And our taxes in the state and in our town keep going up and up. So I think it's a twofold process. I think if I remember the numbers, and I am a numbers person, as you all know, I think the ROI on this project was 18%. And I'm a capitalist too, so I certainly don't behoove a developer who's willing to take risk or another business that's willing to come to town to demand a certain type of return on their investment. That's correct. That's the right attitude. But I think there's some sharpening of the pencils that can be done to make the project work without sticking it to the taxpayers. Look, the bill that was just passed about the police accountability is going to increase the numbers for municipalities, because now we're going to have to fund that liability, which from the estimates that are coming forward is $30,000 per police officer. So we already know we're going to increase the taxes again on you poor people. I don't support that. I didn't support the bill, but I wasn't in a place to vote. If you'd elected me last year, I would have been. I just think this is a very slippery slope. We talk about how we're the best town in the country. We're the best town. West Hartford's #1. Why do we have to give abatements to developers? They come, they're here. I'm sure you can tell this already. I'm opposed to this. I'm not going to vote yes on this at all. And it's no offense to Goldman in New York, and it's no offense to Laz and Mr. Kenny at all. I appreciate that you want to come to town, you want to make this work. But there's got to be a better way. We can't keep sticking it to taxpayers. We simply can't. Why would I let you guys have this tax abatement when seniors are moving out of town because they can't afford it? Or we can't keep millennials here because they can't afford it. It just doesn't make sense to me. I think there's a way to do this project in a different way that we don't have to give tax abatement where everybody's paying their fair share. So that's where I am. I don't want to force, I can look into the future. I can already see another tax increase coming. We barely got by at no increase in mill rate this year, even though I've been hammering on that since I was elected. I just can't support a tax abatement for development of this size where taxpayers are going to bear the brunt of it. And I think with an 18% ROI, that kind of a margin, the developer can do a little more. And maybe that means, I don't know what it means, maybe squeezing out a couple more units. I'm not a developer myself, so I can't speak to that. But somehow we should be able to do that without a tax abatement. Because let me tell you, once this goes through, as much as I love the project and as much as I love the sisters, this will be the way it is till the cows come home. I'll tell you that right now. Once we do it for one, we have to do it for everybody else, because why would something else be different? And I do support the businesses around the neighborhood, the Park Road corridor, every place else. And this project will support them well, but it doesn't mean that we should cost taxpayers another single cent. So Mayor Cantor, thank you for the time, but I will not be supporting this.
Thank you, Ms. Fay. Mr. Davidoff.
Thank you, Mayor Cantor. And I ask my colleagues indulgence. I have some things to say. And I've reflected over this particular issue for probably well over 2 months now. And I just want to start off with thanking our corporation counsel, Dallas Dodge in particular, who spent a good part of an hour going over the agreement with me today to fully understand and vet the different provisions almost line by line, so I could get a very good understanding as to the details, because I don't think it's a surprise to you, details matter. And to everyone in Corporation Counsel's office, thank you, and for also retaining what I believe is excellent outside counsel to assist us with this matter. Sister Barbara, the Sisters of St. Joseph have been located on Park Road for in excess of 100 years. I think you said since 1880s. And I think it's like almost 140 years. And for 140 years, your organization has done things that many of us wish we could do on a daily basis. And that is basically to help those who are the most vulnerable in our community, to provide teaching, to provide healthcare, to provide housing, to meet any of the needs at any of the times. The door has always been open. There's always been a willingness to help. And during that entire time, this parcel has never been on the tax rolls for the town of West Hartford. And that's not unlike many of the other religious institutions in town who also receive tax exempt status, as well as people who are leaders of their congregation. Their residential homes are tax exempt as well. So there are a lot of properties in West Hartford that are not on the tax rolls. You find yourself in a situation that I don't think is unique to your order here in West Hartford. I think it's probably occurring nationwide, probably worldwide, in terms of how do you make ends meet when you've taken an oath of basically poverty and performing good deeds. And I know from my point of view, thank you for being there for our community, for going that extra mile, for providing for those in our community most at need at their most vulnerable times. And tonight, you laid it on the line. You said there's 73 sisters who reside on this premises who don't have another plan, who don't have another way to support themselves. And I'm certain that it must have broken your heart that you had to transform your chapel and move it to a different location, and that you basically had to admit that you're struggling financially. And a lot of people in our community have that same issue. And, but it takes a big person to bring that out and to share that with everyone this evening. And I'm quite appreciative that you had the opportunity this evening to do that. The manager and I have had many discussions about this agreement. And I look at it as, have I done everything necessary in terms of due diligence? Have I asked the tough questions? Have I gotten the answers that I need to make an informed decision? And I will say, as of this hour, all of my questions have been answered. All of my due diligence has been performed, that I'm able to come to a conclusion as to how I think we ought to view this particular project. I think I've sat on most of the major projects in the town of West Hartford over the past 20 years, either as a member of the zoning board or as a member of the town council. And if I was to take out a map, it'd probably be pretty much filled in townwide. And I don't have any regrets about any of the votes I've taken. And I'm not going to have regret about the vote I take this evening as well, because I'm guided by reasonableness and if I know it's the right thing to do. We have a proposal this evening where a developer has come forward to make an improvement in our town of $66 million. Let me repeat, $66 million. In the last 5 years, I don't think I can name a project that comes close. Some of the bigger projects we've worked on have been the Delamar Hotel, which had some type of agreement with respect to assessments based on completion and occupancy because the hotels take a while. We had the 2 projects by Mr. Sagers, but I don't think they total 66 million. And then you go back almost 20 something years now to Blueback Square, and that was in excess of $100 million. So let that number resonate, $66 million. And what are we going to get for the $66 million? We're going to get affordable housing. As Mr. Sweeney just said, 2 weeks ago, we had experts making a presentation about affordable housing and housing that can exist in West Hartford, and what is the vision of our community going forward. What are we proud about in our town in terms of attracting the next generation of West Hartford residents? And what we're most proud about is our diversity. And it's economic diversity, it's all other types of way you want to slice it types of diversity. But this project brings in an economic diversity and a housing diversity. And that bodes quite well. And I think everyone will remember the night that Mr. Kenny presented the first time and we were talking about this being a gateway project. And I said, Gateway, can you just make it pavers and streetlights to look like the rest of everything else? I like uniformity. And you asked me to meet you halfway. I wasn't willing to do that night. And I still think that pavers and streetlights are really important for this look and image that we call West Hartford. So that's fine. And I've looked over it. So what do I think about this idea this evening? I think it's transformative. And it's transformative in a good way. It's bold, it's visionary, and it demonstrates leadership. It may not be the course that we've always taken, but it represents a new way of making progress forward. It's an optimistic way for economic development. It's a way to grow our grand list. It's helping generations of people who call West Hartford home. COVID-19, it's beyond words and expressions, okay? The toll it has taken upon our economy, on people's health, on changing people's lives. I don't even have any more words for it. That's how much it's totally impacted day-to-day life. And it's something that is basically, I keep hearing, a new reality of what we're living in. Well, the new reality here with this particular project is people are willing to invest $66 million in the town of West Hartford. And what are we getting in terms of that? If you look at the project that Lexington Partners has done throughout the greater Hartford region, one cannot help but notice that each one of these projects are high quality residential housing developments serving the needs of the various communities, whether it be in Windsor, Glastonbury, Old Saybrook, Hartford, and now West Hartford. And we have to ask ourselves, will other people continue to invest in West Hartford? I think they will. I think they will because we are a community that's welcoming, that's diverse, that has strong leadership, and is willing to do the right thing at the right time. If I'm wrong, I'll admit I'm wrong. But I think when I look at the scope of the votes that I've taken during my tenure on the council, this one is quite significant. And tonight, on balance, when I weigh all the different factors, and this isn't a zoning application, so it has nothing to do with the zoning part, this is basically a policy decision. I think the best path forward is to be optimistic, to invest in our future, and to go in support of this project. So this evening, I will be casting a ballot in favor of the tax agreement that's been drafted this evening. Thank you for your indulgence and listening to me. And really, I just ask everyone to just really reach into their gut before they cast that ballot to make certain that it's really the right thing for our town and for the sisters and for future generations of West Hartford residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davidoff. Ms. Kerrigan, you're next, but I will say, Ms. Reinheimer, Ben was trying to get back on. He was dropped, I think, so I don't see him back yet. Could you, I will text you his phone number. Okay, Ms. Kerrigan, technology.
Yeah, you want me to hold off until Ben's on the line?
Hold off, he lost power, so I don't know if he can be on his phone. I will text you his cell phone, Ms. Reinheimer, and you can maybe reach out to him. Okay, let's just take a minute break. Okay, he's back. Ms. Kerrigan, go ahead.
Thank you. You know, of all the decisions that I have been and the rest of the council have been asked to make for myself, this is a real difficult one. And I think we all agree that we all want development. We all like the project a lot. We're all excited about it. I think, but the challenge is it worthy of changing the way West Hartford does business? You know, we're number one for a reason. We're safe. We're a safe town, and safety is everything. Our schools are the reason individuals, many come here, and diversity is important because people like to have people around them that may look like their family. And for me and my family, that was particularly important. There's a saying that says time is money, and I do believe time is money. And there's also another one that says haste makes, is it haste makes shit? I don't want to say it like that. Anyways, I feel like we're moving too quickly on this. We had one presentation about one park and a lot of numbers, and then we had a presentation about affordable housing, the history of it. I was able to ask, I think, maybe 2 questions. This is a big decision, and I'm looking at this, if the incentive to agree to change West Hartford's policy on tax abatement is based on what we're going to get is affordable units, I think it's disingenuous. And I, like other counselors, have been speaking to as many people as I can that know this much better than I do. And these are individuals that are in affordable housing businesses. They called the 80% of which our rate right now is 97.4 of AMI. That's basically market rate. That if you look at a teacher in West Hartford on step 1 coming in, based on a third of your income going towards housing, that would give someone a housing allowance of $1,250, and the lowest for the affordable housing on this is $1,373, and that's for the studio. There are other studios in West Hartford that are less expensive, and no doubt none that would be as nice as this one with the Pendleton and the saltwater pools and all of that. Very attractive. But I'm not too sure. Not I'm too sure. I know that when you're going with the highest amount that HUD uses, the 80%, and the high income, which is 97.4, it's not what one would really call affordable. It's not going to accommodate the needs of the essential worker. It's not even going to accommodate the need of a West Hartford teacher in step 1. My concern is, why didn't we, instead of going for tax abatement, and then I know our town manager has used tax abatements in other towns that he's worked in, did we take advantage of density, parking, other accommodations to make it more attractive for the developer instead of treating the developer so special? I live in this neighborhood. I care a lot about this neighborhood. Park and Oak is a place that I frequented with many other individuals, where a family invested time and money, invested time away from family to get a place that individuals could eat and drink and share stories, created jobs, and they had to close because they couldn't get any special treatment. I worry about setting a precedent that somebody can get special treatment because they can't get their 18% return on investments. So I call this sort of faux affordable housing. It makes us feel good about voting for this because, we're giving some affordable housing. Make no mistake about it. These are not truly affordable housing to those that need it most, or even most that need it. The other thing is the job creation. My experience has been that the job creators of these developments are not for those that live around here. People come from other places, not that they don't need a job, but the jobs to construct it are probably construction people coming from places beyond our community. And then the jobs going forward in there, they will not provide more jobs than our retail and our restaurants in the center of town. I know that we're all feeling extremely vulnerable. We're all feeling very desperate. I do think that we haven't thoroughly vetted the options. So what I call win-win, and I have voted for every development that has come forward to the council since being elected on the council. I take these decisions very seriously. I try to look at it from the taxpayers, the residents, the business owners, and many of those individuals who spoke for this. I understand where they're coming from. Who doesn't want more individuals coming into town? The question is, how much should we provide incentives for that to happen? so, I know that Dallas said this is an opportunity for debate. It sounds like there's not a lot of debate going on. It sounds like there's a lot of people who have concluded their vote already. And I think that's maybe part of the issue here. So I'll just leave it at that. Those are my comments.
Thank you, Ms. Kerrigan. Ms. Bites?
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. First of all, I would like to thank the team, especially our Corporation Counsel, Dallas Dodge, and his team, the town manager and his team, the outside counsel, and especially to Sister Barbara Mullen and the voices that you represent. I too attended a Catholic school, so I certainly appreciate the dedication that you all give up and devote to people across the board, but especially the underserved. And you do this each and every day, unwavering. And it is just a sight to be seen when back in the day, I would see sisters just going and coming and doing their work and not expecting any gratitude, but it's just something that you do for the love of your faith and to be part of the community. So I thank you for that. And one part, I have over the years, and I would say for the past 20 years, that I have lived in town, I have either driven by the place, the convent that we're debating tonight, either car, walk, or on bikes with my daughters. And what a beautiful piece of property. And as we debate this tonight going forward, this development can only enhance our neighborhood. Right now, I want to say one of the counselors before tonight would say there's only 2 other places left in town to really be developed. And this is one of the places, and the other place is New Britain Avenue. And I know many residents and many businesses on Park Road is just excited and vibrant with just new and fresh blood and energy that is being created. New businesses that are popping up, young people who are opening up new businesses, young people who've just purchased homes and are still purchasing homes during COVID. So to the team of developers and what you have shared with the council in terms of the literature and paperwork, I know this is a hard decision, but I strongly do believe that our town needs to grow our grand list, and this is a prime opportunity to develop the structure, not only just for the sisters to live out the rest of their days on this beautiful piece of property, but also to commingle with the new energy that this property will bring with the development. Young people, or perhaps even others who are looking to downsize. And not only that, but being able to collaborate with the housing authority so that we do have those units that are truly affordable, and not just affordable on paper, but we make sure that they are affordable for our young people or even our middle-aged residents who may want to reside there. I think this is a win-win. I know that there are some reservations by folks on the council, but I do think this is a win-win. And not only that, but I do think this is almost a stepping stone for all the other properties in the round to be developed, whether it is east of Prospect or west of Prospect. I just think this is a perfect opportunity to begin to look at these spaces that can be improved, whether through rehab or whether through new build. But I do think that once the construction begins on this property, that others will begin to beautify or think of ways to do the same to their property. And I do believe the residents, young, old, and middle age, will also benefit from this. So I am totally in favor of this resolution because I do believe that it is strongly needed in town, and it does speaks to our affordable housing. I also think that it will improve not only Park Road and Prospect, but Park Street and some of our neighboring streets as well. We have Ringgold with that project that's going up over there. And I strongly believe that there's other properties and property owners that will also follow suit. So, Madam Mayor, thank you through you, but I do plan on supporting this resolution tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Blanks. Mr. Gold. Mr. Gold, I don't know if you're on mute. We can't hear you.
You hear me now?
Can hear you now.
Okay, I apologize. You know, I'm not sure if anybody heard, but I've spent long hours going through the details of this project as they were presented, speaking with Mr. Hart, going through this in some great detail from a business perspective as well as a social perspective for the town. I will be voting in favor of the resolution. I think Lex Laz, in developing this property, is truly honoring the long and inspiring history of the Sisters of St. Joseph and the historical site upon which they reside. I believe this development will help to bring vibrancy along with a continued business development to Park Road. The project further brings with it a new workforce, as we've heard, during construction phasing, as well as permanent jobs after the completion, as well as the addition of an affordable housing component, all of which are very important to West Hartford as a whole. The property is an otherwise minimally taxed parcel, which will turn into a significant source of revenue for West Hartford. This tax stabilization agreement, coupled with more fiscal responsibility in addressing our town's budgetary issues, is a necessary step in the process to ensure the continued stability and viability of West Hartford. The project will bring new and diverse people into the ranks of West Hartford that otherwise doesn't necessarily focus on West Hartford Center, which is unique here. My hope is that these newcomers to the town will bring with them a diversity of thought, innovation, and modernization, a unique pulse in this district, the specific district, that will help to reinvent Park Road. I want to thank Alan Lazowski, Marty Kenny of Lex Laz on their visionary approach, and also want to thank our town staff for helping us see this development to fruition. Thank you for all your time, your hard work. I look forward to seeing a completed and inspired social ecosystem bridging our past to the present and into the future, something that will only enhance our entire town. And as I said at the onset, I believe this to be a unique opportunity, and I will be voting in favor of the resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gold. That was a lot in a very concise way. It was, it was good. Okay, so I'm going to close. I think in the next resolution there could be a little discussion on policy, but I first want to thank Marty for your investment in our community, Alan Lazowski for your investment. This is a big deal. $66 million is a significant investment. I want to thank the sisters for their incredible patience and their priority of really staying true to what they wanted to see in this corner that has been their home for over a century. Sister Barbara, you spoke so well on behalf of your 72 sisters, and we're grateful for all you've done in our community. And that is one of the things that makes this so different than anything else that we've looked at and will not set a precedent. And we can't let it set a precedent by just saying it's different, it's unique, it's distinctive. And why is that? And some of my colleagues already spoke to this. This is a non-taxable property. There's no tax on this at all now. So 8 years ago, when the sisters were developing this property, or talking about development for the property and looking for the right size home for their family, 8 years ago, we would already be almost done with the tax abatement schedule. Imagine if that had happened, if things had moved smoothly and we were in that place now. But I will say one of the biggest challenges is the historic preservation. And we are an old state. We are an established state. We have incredible gems of history throughout our communities. And in many cases, it was the short-term gain for that long-term destruction of a historic site. And it's challenging, it's hard, and it takes everybody's investment and work to preserve historic sites. I'm disappointed that the Park Service, the National Park Service, didn't support this, because I do feel as though this would and should qualify. And the state, this made it through the state, and it was the National Park Service that actually created the problem. So now it's up to us. So what do we do? Well, do we say no, and then the development falls apart, and then the sisters start, and the historic preservation on 2 times? This is, again, taken 8 years. Nothing's happened quick on this. It is 8 years that we have been looking at this corner and figuring out what the right answer is. And so I think this is sort of the last straw to see it as it stands now, and develop into something as new and old, preserving and protecting the old and welcoming the new. And so I think that this is our opportunity. I truly believe in my heart of hearts that if we say we vote no, that corner will not look at all like it looks now, or nearly what it will look like, a vanilla project. And that's not Park Road. Park Road is exactly what I think 5 young New Yorker couples that I have met that moved into around the Park Road area that they like unique, eclectic, authentic, historic, and vibrant. And that is Park Road. The old diner, from to the Stebbins to A.C. Peterson. I mean, things that were there when I grew up. That is unique and so valuable. And it's up to us to protect it or not. We have not only are the buildings historic and valuable, but also the landscape is. This is an Olmsted landscape. This is Central Park. This is Elizabeth Park. This is Bushnell Park. This is history. And to leave this accessible to people is really valuable to our greater community, not just the Park Road community. So this will provide the economic stimulus, and we can't take away of where we are now in a pandemic. That businesses are hurting, and some have closed, and they do need this shot in the arm to survive and to carry on and to thrive in the future. And so if we don't do this, again, this will have, I think, a chain reaction of hurting not only the strip mall behind it, directly behind it, that has a strategic vacancy, but also up and down the corridor of Park Road and Park Street. I think someone mentioned the Parkville Market, which I think my son has been to 3 times already, but it is a very a wonderful, I think, blend and connector of all that is on Park Road. What I think is, again, so unique about this was a tax exempt property. It is over $60 million development. It is in 8-year project that lost on 2 rounds of historic preservation credits. It has significant historic preservation, and it has some affordable housing. It doesn't meet what we want as goals for affordable housing. This is not an affordable housing project, nor was it ever meant to be. And so I don't think that was the point. In the next resolution, we will talk about a policy. I do think that this, if we were to develop a policy for a unique project, very little or none besides this project would fit into what this policy would look like. So, because we just don't have those opportunities. And let's listen to what some of those business owners, what they said, and they live and breathe this corridor. They again, treasured property. This project is transformational, unique major development, gateway, and anchor, catalyst. Will create further revitalization. It's essential. It preserves character. It also shows the town's investment in newcomers and old timers in the area. It will welcome and has welcomed Black, brown, white, immigrants, elderly, newlyweds, single parents, teachers, and artists, and everything in between. These are quotes from the various letters we got. Meets the sisters' thoughtful desires from people that are deeply invested and nested. Add to walkability and success of business along the corridor and neighborhood. This is the highest and best use. Parade preparations. This is a neighborhood that started all our neighborhood organizations. Park Road Association was the defining factor, and that's what makes us the #1 community in Connecticut. It is all our communities that invest and work so hard to make their spaces and places better. The neighborhood ticks, and with the clock, the Patrici clock, it's also part of that theme. Great diversity, great pride and perseverance, locally grown small businesses and cultural institutions, prospects not aligned but a point of integration. We see that at the Park Road Parade with Hartford and West Hartford. Things don't come easy to Park Road. I think they're comparing to the center, and that's profoundly true in a pandemic. This neighborhood can continue to be an integral part of what makes West Hartford great. This unique development and opportunity will not only develop new high quality market housing, but some new high quality affordable housing as well. So with that, we will go to a roll call vote. Ms. LeBron.
Ms. Blanks,
Yes.
Ms. Cantor,
Yes.
Mr. Davidoff,
Yes.
Ms. Fay,
No.
Mr. Gold,
Yes.
Ms. Kerrigan.
Pass.
Is the a pass or I'm sorry, what was that?
I was passing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Winograd,
Yes.
and Mr. Williams. Mr. Williams, I think you're on mute.
No.
The resolution passes.
Thank you very much, Ms. LeBron, and I just want to give an extra shout out and thank you to, as many of my colleagues did, to Corporation Counsel's Office, Town Manager Mart Hart, Kristen Gorski, Economic Development. This has been a long, a lot of work went into this. So again, thank you very much, Ms. LeBron, and the,
Madam Mayor,
yes, Mr. Dodge.
Sure.
can we just, thank you, Madam Mayor, the Corporation Counsel Dallas Dodge, can we just clarify for the record, Councilwoman Kerrigan's intent? Typically, a pass would mean that somebody wished to be recognized again to vote. I just want to make sure that she didn't intend to cast a vote, and that was in fact an abstention.
Thank you, Mr. Dodge. Ms. Kerrigan, can you clarify whether it's a pass and you intend to vote before we move on, or you are abstaining to vote? Ms. Kerrigan.
Thank you for that. So it is in fact an abstention. Thank you. Councilor Hodge.
Thank you, Ms. Kerrigan.
Thank you, Madam
Mr.
Mayor.
LeBeau, you have that for the record? Okay. All right.
Thank you. That's six in favor, 2 noes, and abstention, and 1 abstention.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. The next and last thing on our agenda is a resolution concerning housing choice and affordable housing options. This is a resolution that was meant to go with this approval because of presenting and developing a policy. I think part of the challenge is that we don't have policies in place. We've done some incentives in an area, but we haven't put together all the pieces. And so this resolution actually responds to what the state has asked us to do, which is to adopt an affordable housing plan by the year 2022, which is not that long. So we've got to figure out how we do that. So this resolution directs the town manager to prepare policy recommendations to increase housing choice and affordable housing developments and options in West Hartford, and to report such findings to the Standing Committee on Community Planning and Economic Development. So said recommendations may include strategic use of tax incentives, zoning incentives, graduated permit fee schedule, various forms of public-private partnerships. So this just directs the town manager to do research have town staff do that work, and then come back to us with recommendations. And there may be multiple times there's coming back, and then there's back and forth, but we have to start this process. And we have other developers that are looking to say, do you have a policy for affordable housing, and what is your policy? So, and this will, I'm sure there will be consultation with our very treasured West Hartford Housing Authority, who has developed so much of our affordable housing in town. So with that, any comments or questions before we go to roll call? Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. One piece of this I'd just like to raise is, I think it's important for us to appreciate, because I don't have it. I know we addressed this a few years ago, but essentially where we are in terms of affordability overall, because we keep talking about capital A versus lower A, that being subsidized versus non-subsidized. And regardless of subsidization, what I would like to know as a member of the body is what it looks like in terms of our affordable housing inventory, period, based on a number. So the state uses metrics, and if we applied those metrics not only to the subsidized housing, but also the non-subsidized housing, I just think that'd be a helpful baseline for all of us, so that we just know what we have. Because I think we did this 5 years ago or so, and we looked at it, and I'm sure things have changed a little bit. I just think that would be helpful predicate for us as we move forward on looking at this issue. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. I completely agree, and that is something we're asking staff to do an inventory of what we've deed restricted or what is considered affordable with our income levels, and all of that. And Mr. Dumais did that for us, and it was very interesting, and we need an update. So I completely agree. Any other questions, comments, Ms. Fett?
Thank you, Mayor Cantor. I guess this falls in line with Mr. Williams' comments. I had a lot of questions for the presenters at the I guess there were state level folks who were talking about affordable housing and how the state is, segregated and all these other metrics, which of course would be concerning. But I don't know that we're measuring the same apples and oranges or how we're measuring things, because I look at a town like West Hartford, which is why most of us love it, and we love living here with this diversity around a bunch of different spectrums, right? Income levels, race, religions, what have you. But there's a definition that I don't really think fits, because I look around and I see, the multifamily homes that rent what I would consider to be affordable at the $1,000 level for, 2 bedrooms that certainly a college graduate could afford. You see some of the condos actually close to the center that are renting out for low rent. So I just want to make sure that we're looking at the right metrics when we put this into place, because I think the government has a different definition where it's new housing that goes about a median, blah, blah, blah. And I want to make sure that we're not penalizing, people who have already invested in our talent, either through owning multifamilies or multiple family homes or other, smaller apartment buildings. And now we're going to build more that are going to take away market share from the folks who are already here. So that would be my comment. I don't think there's a common definition or denominator of how you measure affordable housing. I think the state government and national government has one definition, and I think people who are looking for affordable housing might have a different one, which would encompass more housing. So that would be my comment, that we just have to make sure that we're measuring things on an equal playing field. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fay. I think we'll have the opportunity to do that and review that data. Yes, Mr. Sweeney.
Mayor Gaynor, I appreciate you putting this forward tonight. I think that this is, I think we've had a lot of different conversations with different developers about what we're looking for in town. I think the last 2 weeks ago, the presentation was very informative for at least for me, and getting more in the details about the town. And I think, going forward for, to be fair to other developers that are coming forward, I think that was, a fair point that was made by folks earlier tonight. We need to have kind of a standard bearer, and we have to have a real kind of understanding of what we're going to do in regards to affordable housing going forward. So I think this is a great step in that direction, and I applaud the team for putting this forward, and for you putting it forward too. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. And I think that makes the point in, if there will not be a story that I know of in town that had an 8-year path with 73 nuns that need a home. The precedent is unique and not. And so we have to determine what we want, and we have to define it, and we have to develop it in policy. So anyway, thank you. Anybody else? I don't see any hands, so I don't know if anyone on the phone wants to comment. I don't see anything on my phone. Okay. With that, we will go to roll call. Ms. LeBron.
Ms. Blanks.
Yes.
Ms. Cantor.
Yes.
Ms. Cantor.
Yes.
Mr. Davidoff.
Yes.
Ms. Fay.
No.
Mr. Gold.
Yes.
Ms. Kerrigan.
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney.
Yes.
Mr. Winograd.
Yes.
And Mr. Williams.
Yes.
That's 8-1. Passes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And without objection, I make a motion to adjourn. Any objection? We're adjourned. Good evening, and thank you all.